Welcome, everybody. This is Mastermind call number 12. We are marching right along, the group that's been meeting since June, and I see a lot of friendly faces here. At least you look friendly, I don't know. So I hope you brought some brain power tonight because I'm going to put you to work, and I'm going to go ahead with my presentation. And then I'm going to have you get thinking. And here's the topic you're going to be thinking about. I'm going to share with you the framework, the dual capacity building framework that the U.S. Department of Education is advocating for. They have announced it as this is the official. What it doesn't do is talk about families of kids with disabilities. And what I've been doing for the last couple of years is trying to figure out what that means. So I'm going to probe you a little bit, and then I'm going to send you into breakout rooms to see what you come up with for what it means. I suspect you'll come up with some of the thinking that I've had, but some of you are going to come up with something I haven't ever thought of. And that's so, I want you to engage in this process. I don't want to influence your thinking, although I'm going to send you in that direction. So, okay, everybody on board? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to practice, share. I'm going to practice presenting from Google Slides and using captions. So this should be working, and I'm going to put my notes over here on this other screen so I can look at you and talk at the same time. So, So we're going to be looking at family partnerships, and we're looking at them. Some of you may know that this is a favorite topic of mine. My dissertation was on the topic of family engagement for kids with disabilities. I've written a book that CEC publishes, and they still call it a bestseller, although all the royalties go to a professional organization. So it's a topic I've been working on for, I would say, 20 years or more. And I was influenced by my own experience of being a professional thinking about families, and then being a family thinking about how professionals engaged me. And we've had a number of those conversations along the way. So how do I advance slides? If I just hit click, oh, that works. Okay.
Hey, so, Amy, real quick.
Yes.
Right before the call when we were troubleshooting this,
yep.
You might want to hit the little box at the bottom so that we don't see your tabs.
Ah, there we go. Thank you for that reminder.
You're welcome.
That's why we have friends. So there has been more than 35 years of research, convincing research, that parent involvement in education benefits all children. So here's a list. Here's some of the research. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. We know you get the families engaged and working with the school, it works for everybody. You may know that in 2007, in Henderson from the Annenberg Institute and Karen Mapp from Harvard wrote a book called Beyond the Bake Sale. And it was a groundbreaking book that said families should be involved more than just coming to sell cookies. And one of the concepts in that book was the idea of whether a school is a welcoming school. And I found this graphic online, I love it. So it talks about which of these is your school, which type of, how welcoming is your school. So think about this in terms of the school or schools where you work or where you have your kids or wherever. So the first is a fortress school. And this is one that, they have the walls up, they have screening devices to make sure parents don't intrude because we have to keep it safe. And they say things like, our parents really don't value education. If they send kids here, we'll save them. We'll take care of them because they're living in an environment that's really not encouraging for education. And we probably would have better scores if we had different kids or if we had a different neighborhood. Those people from that other neighborhood have better kids. And so that's the fortress school approach. The second level is come if we call school. And this is a school that says, we want families here, and here's how we want families to interact. Here's a committee for families. Here's the bake sale, or here's this other project for families. But we, the professionals, know best how to engage families, and look at all the things we do. And they come every time we call. They come to our meetings, but of course it's not everybody. It's a little proportion, but that's the come if we call school. The next level is an open door school, where we say, oh, we have families in here all the time. We have families who are working as, they listen to kids reading in the first grade, and they are on this committee, and they're room mothers, and they're doing all of this. But still, the school has defined what they're doing. Yes, they're involved in a lot of things. We keep parents busy. We like to keep them involved, but it's still who has the power. Even with an open door school, the school has the power. And then the final one is a partnership school, where they say things like, we could never do it without our families. We work with parents and our community, notice that, to do whatever it takes to help kids. So if you think about it, I'm going to ask you to post in the chat right now where you think, the school that you were thinking of, where would they rate? Which one of those 4 levels would they be? Fortress school, come if we call school, open door school, or partnership school? The problem is I can't see the chat while I'm doing this. Oh, wait, can I? Nope. So I'm going to wait. It's interesting, and I'll look over that later, but I'm going to keep going because I want to give you most of the time. So would somebody unmute and tell me what most people have said?
I'm seeing mostly come if we call, but there are some that are saying partnership.
Okay, good.
That's what and a couple that said open door too.
Yay. Okay. So it's but nobody is a fortress school, so that's good. But have you ever been in one? You know how that feels. Like even when you walk in as a visitor, there's like all these barriers. Like, what are you doing here? Okay. Next slide. I love this slide, and I actually did a screenshot from a webinar that I watched with Raquel Jimenez from the Oakland Unified School District. She shared this slide in a webinar, and she said these are the 4 core beliefs that the whole Oakland Unified School District has. They include these 4 core beliefs in every internal document, every activity they have. They evaluate every interaction they have with families, everything they offer families using those 4 core beliefs. Do you agree with those 4 core beliefs? And how about the teachers that you work with in the school around you? I'm wondering if they, are these beliefs? And then I'm going to ask you another while we're pondering, what about kids with disabilities? Would people that you work with change their answer? So that's interesting. I love that they have that this is where we stand. So I mentioned the dual capacity building framework in the notice for the meeting. This is version 2. The first one came out in 2014. This one was revised, came out in 2019. Both were developed by Karen Mapp of Harvard, who is the co-author of Beyond the Bake Sale that I mentioned. I was fortunate to be associated with her and with the district leaders on family engagement that the Institute for Educational Leadership assembled back, 2008 or 2009. And we got together for a 3-day retreat every year. These were people who were like the associate superintendent in charge of family engagement, or the assistant superintendent. So somebody way up in the district. And the first year there were 6, and then it's grown to where there are like 100 people. I was invited. Obviously, that wasn't my title, but they wanted somebody who could represent families of kids with disabilities. So I got to listen in on what they were learning and what they were developing, and then add in my 2 cents. So, I'm sort of an insider, but not really. One of those fly on the walls who gets to learn from everybody else. So I want to go to, actually their website is the best place, the Dual Capacity Building Framework, so that I can share with you how this is set up. So on their website, they have all the parts and they have it broken down. And then below it, they have all kinds of resources that, boy, I made this very large. So that might be good for some of you, but so the first part of the framework is the challenge. What's the challenge for educators? And what's the challenge for families? So mainly educators haven't been exposed to strong examples of family engagement. Don't we basically perpetuate what has happened before? If we don't know what strong family engagement could be, I know when I was a first-year teacher, I asked the other teachers around me, what are we supposed to do with families? Oh, you do this, that. I just did it. I just thought that was the way it went. They've had minimal training. The research shows less than 30% of teachers ever have a course on working with families. More if you have special ed, but general ed teachers generally don't. And they might not see partnership as essential. I had a principal say to me, well, Rodney even said a couple weeks ago, like we'll work on what we can do here, and we don't have control over what's happening with the families. That's true. We can't control what they're doing, but we can build a bridge and build support for them. And so and most of them have kind of a deficit mindset, thinking about families in terms of what they are not offering their children that they wish they were, versus look at all the assets these families bring to the table. So if they don't speak English, what other assets do they bring to the table, or that sort of thing. And then families, many of them have not had good experiences, especially kids with disabilities. When you sit down in an IEP meeting, families are often angry, or they're discouraged, or they're, like, I have not been treated well in the past, or something else, and they've had negative past experiences, and they may not feel invited. They may never have felt invited, and they may feel disrespected or underhurt. This whole racial justice issue is huge when you think about families. So that's the first part. And then if I move to the next part on the diagram, the essential conditions, I'm not going to go into the same depth, but these are the things that need to be part of the process. If you're building a framework for family engagement, you want to include relationships built on mutual trust, culturally responsive, and there's certain organizational conditions, like everybody across the system has to embrace family engagement. You can't just have one teacher that says they'll do it. That helps, but if you're really going to build it, it needs to be across the system and sustained with resources and infrastructure. Is there a budget? So then I'm going back up to challenge, policy and program goals. So as you're building policy and program, they say 4 C's you need to have. The capabilities. What do we need to build the dual capacity of professionals and families? What capabilities do they need in order to work together? What kind of connections, and how do you foster connections? Cognition is shifts in beliefs and values. If you hear teachers saying, oh, they're from that neighborhood, or they're those families, and we often hear that about kids with disabilities. If you're calling them the other, then we need to work on some of that belief system. And then confidence. Do teachers feel confident to call a parent? Or do parents feel confident to call a teacher? So then going back up to capacity outcomes. These are the outcomes for educators. They're now empowered to do all of these things. Look at this. Engage families as co-creators. Honor family funds of knowledge. create welcoming cultures, and families are now ready to perform these roles. So the end result, of course, is effective partnerships that support school and support student and school improvement. So going on to the next slide, I want to really dig into, that's a great framework. And Karen Mapp says it is not a roadmap, it's a compass. It's a, where's true north? These are the things that you want to include, but you want to build a strategic plan that fits your school community, your teachers, the knowledge that people have, and all the other, the different conditions that are present. So what about partnering with families with disabilities? Well, back when the IDEA 2004 regulations came out, I printed out all the regulations. I was working at a Department of Education, so I used their printer, and it was about this thick. It was like 1.5 inches thick. And I went through with a yellow highlighter and I highlighted every time I saw the word parents or family. And then I categorized all of the parent participation kinds of events and ways that families are involved. It comes down to 6 different ways that IDEA says we need to engage families. The 2 that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that teachers are, face teachers the most. The first is about rights in the IEP process. We know that we hand over that procedural safeguards document and we talk to parents about their rights and all that sort of thing. We make sure that we're in compliance with that. Number 4, parent counseling and training is listed as a related service that can be on any student's IEP if the team says this parent well, I think I have a slide that goes into that in more depth, so I'll come to that in a minute. I'll give you the definition right out of the law. Then when we're talking about collaborating with families, I want to make sure we're looking at the definition of these words. What do we mean by partnership? A relationship resembling a legal partnership and usually involving close cooperation between parties having specified and joint rights and responsibilities. So you think about a partnership, both members of the partnership are not the same. One has business expertise, the other has whatever it is they're going to do. You don't want identical skill sets. So if we have a partnership, families bring their skill set and professionals bring theirs. And how do we join together to have, to aim toward the same goal? I love this definition of collaborate. Co means together and labor means work. Collaborate, work together toward a common goal. And then efficacy, to both have the power. Now, Karen Mapp developed the dual capacity building framework. I think it ought to be the tri-capacity building framework, because I think the special ed law talks about building the efficacy of students and having them be owners in the whole learning process. So, but for now, I'll stick with, maybe when you get into your breakout rooms, you'll talk a little bit more about that. The other thing that's going on when we're talking about families with disabilities is they may be at various stages of the grief process of coming to terms with their child's disability is described as being like the grief process. They could be at various stages, and how professionals interact with them is different depending on where they are. So I want to give you a personal example. I'm going to tell you about 2 situations when I was the mom at an IEP meeting. The first one is school A, and the IEP team began. The school psychologist and counselor were down the hall. My son had just been diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and I had met with that psychologist privately. She had gone over all the results. This was going to be the first meeting where she shares the results with the team. So I came in, and the person running the meeting invited me to sit in the parent seat. Now, I had been at that team as the transition coordinator, and I could sit wherever I wanted, but they told me this is where the parent sits. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be in that seat. And then he said, let's go ahead with the meeting. And I said, but the psychologist and the guidance counselor aren't here. And he says, yes, they're finishing up an IEP meeting down the hall, but let's get started. We have to start with your concerns. And I went, well, I would like the psychologist and the guidance counselor to hear my concerns. And, I might express my concerns other times during this meeting. He goes, oh, no, we just need your concerns now because we have to write it. And then I said, well, I'd like to wait and not start the meeting until they get here. And he said, well, that's going to throw our whole schedule off. Now, he's been calling me Mrs. Pleet, even though I'm Amy. And I said, Tom, I know how this works. I know that Sally only has a substitute, I know how this works. But this is my son's meeting, and I need to be the mom here. That was really hard. It was really hard to and actually somebody on the team put a note in my employment folder over in the personnel office that I was not playing as a fair member of the team because I was holding up the team. I managed to, I found out about it and I'm like, oh my gosh. So that sent me on the path of, what is this? Why is there a separate parent seat? Why is there my side to the table, their side to the table? What is going on here? Now, if that team had been out of compliance, what do you think the chances are that I would file a lawsuit? Because they were not partners with me. Now, School B invited me to come to the meeting, but they had been talking to me so many times, they would pick up the phone and they might even leave me a voicemail. You won't believe what happened today. This was a great day for your son, blah, blah, blah. Just a quick message. So I came to the meeting and I went, we're behind on reviewing this or something. And they went, oh, we're so sorry. I didn't care. I was partners with them. Did I care as a parent if we were exactly in compliance? You see, that partnership, people are so afraid to give parents information because it might mess things up. They might actually sue us. But if you have a strong partnership, they're not going to do any of that. I mean, it's like I could just feel the difference. So it got me thinking about something that I call the partnership matrix. So I'm going to share this with you. I've shared this at a couple of national conferences, actually, CEC and DCDT. And I started thinking, what if you could say professional capacity is either yes or no? Either the professionals know how to work with families or they don't. Of course, we know it's a continuum. And what if you say the families either know how to work with schools or they don't? What would that look like? So I'm making it as a yes, no, even though we know it's not. So you see professional capacity across the top. If the professionals have no capacity, they don't know how to partner with families. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to ask questions. They don't know how to, they're being, we're the experts. And the families don't know how to work with professionals. Then what we have are distrustful islands. This is where there's finger pointing and blame and, it's your fault. Oh, it's not my fault. And, all this taking sides, passing the buck. If you have the families do have capacity, a good attorney or a parent center has given parents good information, or they've done a great search on the internet and they know what their rights are and they know what they want for their child, but the professionals don't know how to deal with them, then we have something called the demanding consumer. I demand this. And these are the ones watch out. They have an attorney, that positioning. And the schools say something like, well, we don't have to give a Cadillac if a Chevy will do. But that's where we see increased lawsuits. So what if you have the families don't have capacity, but the professionals do? Then we have the insider authority. Okay, so we're going to tell the parents this, but we're not going to tell them that. And I can confess to you that there were times as a professional, I would say to a parent before they would go into the IEP meeting, you can ask for this, but don't tell them I told you. I have insider information and I know this is an option, but I'm going to get in trouble because we only have so much funding. We only want so money, what is going on? That's the insider authority. I'm the professional. I have the guidebook. I'll let you know what you are allowed to know. And then families, a lot of times, will just sign the paper, and then we go, how come the families aren't more involved? And of course, the last is Empowered Alliance, where they're working together and where they can say, look, I've never worked with a child like yours before, because we never have. They're all different. And I really need your input. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what we're seeing. And right now, while we have online learning, all the more we need those kinds of conversations. But there's vulnerability, and the parents go, well, I don't know how to handle this. And the teacher says, I don't either, but let's figure it out together. And there's that forgiveness and acceptance and vulnerability. And that makes a really powerful alliance that works well for kids. So I only have a couple more. Let's go back to the purpose of IDEA. Whoops. So you know that it's to ensure that all students get free, appropriate public education designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. You can probably all do it in your sleep like I do. So we're talking about unique needs, and we're talking about self-efficacy. I don't think we can know all their unique needs without family input. Especially right now, are there new needs when we're online? And how do we help build their self-efficacy if we don't have parents working with us? So, oh, by the way, some I don't know if you've seen some proposals that when they redo, if they ever reauthorize IDEA, that they should call it adult responsibilities instead of independent living. Because a lot of people think independent living is where they live. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. A little side note. So there's parent involvement in research we've already talked about, but for kids with disabilities, if you have parents that they're involved and their expectations for their children is high, then we see improvement in post-school outcomes, post-secondary education, and in their self-determination skills. I love this study, and I want to just throw this one in. Morningstar and Turnbull did this way back in '96. They had 3 focus groups, and they pulled kids together, all different kinds of disabilities, and they said, tell us about the transition services that you're having. And the kids would say, well, I'm getting to do job shadowing, I'm out on some job experience, we're doing some of this, I'm getting a career assessment. And they go, okay. So most of the kids had about the same kinds of things. And then they said to the kids, are they good? And half the kids said, well, those activities are meaningless. I should be working on my reading. And half the kids said, they're really valuable for me. And they thought, same kids, like, why is this? And when they probed deeper, you know what I'm going to say. When they probed deeper, the ones who thought it was meaningless was because their families said the school shouldn't be taking you out, having you do these things. And the ones where the family said that's valuable, they're the families that said, wow, what a valuable thing. I'm glad the school's doing that. So if we're doing things and we don't have parents valuing it the same way we do, we may not get the same buy-in from kids. Another reason for family involvement. So Donna Wandry and I wrote the book on the left, and then we wrote a chapter in the book on the right. And we said that we think there are 5 roles for families during secondary transition, but I think these go across the age span. These are the different roles that families play as they're supporting their child and supporting the system. We could go into a lot more detail, but I'm going to skip over those and come to this last slide, where Helen Keller says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So here is your question. What could we add to the dual capacity building framework? Or what additional pieces do we need to really build partnerships with families? Because I think there are some additional pieces to that.